Every day, often without realizing it, our body comes into contact with various potentially harmful substances, including food additives, foods, drugs, environmental pollutants, alcohol, and various types of chemicals. If these poisons are not properly disposed of by the liver, they can compromise its proper functioning, and consequently, that of the entire organism. In this video, we will see what are the main substances that put the health of the liver at risk, and what we can do to protect it. The liver is one of the most extraordinary organs in the human body, and among the many functions it performs, we find that of eliminating toxic and harmful substances from our body, filtering over a liter of blood per minute. Precisely for this reason, it is also one of the organs most exposed to the harmful effects of many substances. But which are they? Let's go see them. Paracetamol. Paracetamol is one of the most widely used drugs in the world for the symptomatic treatment of pain of various origins and natures, such as headache, backache, muscle and menstrual pain, as well as being used to lower fever in cases of influenza or other infections. However, at the same time, paracetamol is one of the main causes of pharmaceutical poisoning worldwide. Since it can be purchased in pharmacies without a prescription, many people tend to abuse it, underestimating its potential toxic effects on the liver. Paracetamol overdose is in fact one of the main causes of acute liver failure, and in some cases becomes so serious that the patient needs a transplant. Cases of paracetamol overdose in fact represent 20% of liver transplants throughout Europe and the United States. This is because the abuse of this drug can stimulate the activation of specific cells of the immune system, called macrophages. Once activated, they release inflammatory substances that, instead of helping in healing, can worsen the situation, contributing to aggravate the damage to liver cells, already compromised by the excessive presence of paracetamol. In addition, an observational study conducted by some Chinese researchers in 2024 suggested that regular use of paracetamol also increases the risk of developing liver cancer by 28% compared to non-users. Trans fatty acids. Trans fatty acids are unsaturated fatty acids that belong to the category known as bad fats. We can find them mainly in ultra-processed industrial products such as packaged snacks and biscuits, but also in margaritas, in fried and fast food, as well as in frozen pizzas and ready meals. A diet rich in trans fatty acids has been shown to promote the accumulation of cholesterol and triglycerides in the blood, promoting the deposition of abdominal and visceral fat. This results in a state of chronic inflammation that increases the risk of developing certain liver diseases, including non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which can eventually degenerate first into liver fibrosis and then into cirrhosis. Numerous epidemiological studies have now shown that a high consumption of trans fatty acids can cause a series of adverse health effects, including an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and some types of cancer. Alcohol. Alcohol is considered the liver's #1 enemy, as it can cause irreversible damage to the organ to the point of completely compromising its functionality. The damage often begins silently with the accumulation of fat in the liver cells, which can then evolve into alcoholic hepatitis, a liver disease characterized by chronic inflammation of the liver tissue. However, if alcohol consumption continues, it can degenerate into liver fibrosis, where damaged liver cells are replaced by scar tissue, which prevents the organ from functioning properly. However, if this pathological process is not stopped, it can become permanent and lead to liver cirrhosis with potentially fatal complications. Alcohol abuse is in fact the most frequent cause of liver disease in the Western world, as well as one of the main reasons that lead to the need for a liver transplant. Not only that, it represents one of the most important risk factors for the development of hepatocellular carcinoma, the most common form of liver cancer. As the Ministry of Health reminds us, there are no quantities of alcohol that can be considered advisable or safe for health. At most, we can talk about low-risk consumption to underline that the danger exists at any level of intake and progressively increases with the increase in the quantity of alcohol consumed. Zero risk for cancer is linked to abstaining from alcoholic beverages. Sugars. The liver is known to play a key role in glucose homeostasis, as it stores glucose in the form of glycogen and releases it when the body needs it. A diet high in sugar can therefore trigger chronic inflammation in the liver, as excess glucose is converted into fat and begins to accumulate in liver cells. These cells will then begin to resist insulin, compromising the liver's ability to regulate blood sugar and consequently increasing the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. It is therefore important to moderate the consumption of sugars in our diet, especially limiting those that are added to foods or drinks during manufacturing processes or directly by the consumer. Among the main sources of added sugars, we find products from the confectionery industry, such as cakes, biscuits, and snacks, fruit juices, sugary and alcoholic drinks, but also in some breakfast cereals, ready-made sauces, and canned meat. In conclusion, we have seen that the liver is a fundamental organ for our health and at the same time extremely vulnerable to the action of toxic substances. Adopting a healthy lifestyle, avoiding the abuse of drugs, limiting the consumption of alcohol, sugars, and ultra-processed foods is the first step to keeping the liver healthy.